Okay, so let's see what is in the anthropology box for us today. So our meditation today, each lecture, I'm going to open with a meditation. Let's see what our meditation today is. The Ojibwe Water Song. So I'll play the Ojibwe Water Song, and then we'll get started with lecture.
Granddaughter, the water can hear you. The water has memory. Nibi,
Nibi,
Wabo,
Wabo,
Endayan,
Endayan,
Nibi wabo endayen akibisi. Nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
Water is the lifeblood of our mother, the earth. Water is the lifeblood of our own body.
Nibi wabo endayen akibisi. Nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
To continue to pass on the knowledge that needs to be given unto the other generations. You are the keeper of the water.
Nibi wabo endayen akibisi. Nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
To make the change in this life condition that we're in, that great-grandchildren will stand up to this truth of what life is about, and to live it in such an honorable way, the way ancestors came to this earth.
Nibi wabo endayen akibisi. Nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
Each day when the sun rises, no matter how bad the day before might have been, there's a new chance for your hopes and dreams. And I say, Chimigwech, thank you for singing the water song.
Nibi wabo endayen akibisi. Nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
Okay, so thank you for joining me for that meditation. The Ojibwe people are indigenous people of the Americas. Geographically, they predominantly live in the north central region of the U.S. Or the south central region of Canada, and are often divided by the border. And the water song I played for us to give you and invite you to journal or reflect on your relationship to water, especially during the COVID-19 outbreak, your own access to water, your relationship to water, maybe taking water for granted as this disease spreads through the world and the globe. The Ojibwe believe that women are predominantly the protectors of the water. This is due to the presence of water in birth, the presence of water needed in the womb to transfer nutrients to fetuses. And so that meditation was guided by women. It's a specific gender role of the Ojibwe. Okay, so let's see. Thank you for joining me in that meditation. And we will have a meditation in the anthropology box for us every single lecture. We will also have a key concept of the day. And today, let's see what we have. We have, what is anthropology? So we'll go over what is anthropology today. Here are some of our key terms and concepts. We will also have key terms and concepts every single lecture. I'll pull from outlined for you. Okay, so our key concept today is anthropology. Anthropology is the study of human beings, past and present. There are 4 subfields that we're going to go over today. Archaeology, biological anthropology, cultural anthropology, and linguistics. We will talk a little bit about each one of those in this course. But let's stick with anthropology for now in general, and let's put the subfields aside for a second here. Okay, so anthropology. First, I want to talk about how in anthropology, we might have a very outdated idea of what is an anthropologist. We might think Indiana Jones or Tomb Raider. If anyone saw Black Panther and the scene where he talks about how museum people came across those artifacts, some of it is sort of based in truth of this daughter of imperialism. Sometimes people refer to anthropology as the daughter of imperialism, especially in history. Modern day anthropologists are nothing like Indiana Jones. That's a very romanticized and somewhat violent depiction of the process, but also a violent depiction of indigenous people. Anthropologists, instead of Indiana Jones, their history were that they would explore the world and dig up excavation sites, and the ethics of at that time were very problematic. This is something we'll talk more about in the course. But today, so that's the history of anthropology. Today, anthropology is more about the art of seeing big. What I mean by that is it's the art of seeing how interconnected everything is. Politics, economics, culture, food. It's the art of understanding that. Your textbook talks more about this. The other art that it is asking questions and observing. So ethnography and oral histories. We're going to talk about all that in this class. We're going to talk about ethnographic interviews, and you're going to conduct a few. And then anthropology is also the art of understanding one another, making connections, the art of human connections. So with that, anthropology has 2 pillars. So the first one is that every behavior is rational in its cultural context. We'll talk a little bit more about this in lecture 2, but what I mean by this is in anthropology, when you learn about different cultures, when you learn about different ways of being and practices, we assume automatically as anthropologists that makes sense in that cultural context. It's rational, even if in our context, it wouldn't be rational. So, for example, if you were to go to a Subway, and probably not now because we're all quarantined because of COVID-19, but if you were to go to a Subway and you were to ask to make a sandwich, there's a certain routine, there's a ritual that goes along with going to a Subway and making a sandwich. You go in, you tell them the kind of bread you want, and then you tell them the kind of meat you want, or if you don't want meat, you tell them all the toppings, if you want it toasted. But if you were to go into your house and make your own sandwich, you wouldn't do all that. It wouldn't be rational in that cultural context. But you wouldn't harshly judge the way that Subway does it because it makes sense in Subway's cultural context. The other thing that is a huge pillar of anthropology is people are experts in their own experience. So sometimes students run into the trap of interviewing someone about their life and thinking that it's quote unquote not real data. It is. It is that person's experience of their life and the phenomenon. And in anthropology, a social science class, it is a huge part of data and collecting data about things that we go through. Okay, so anthropology is the study of humans. There's 4 subfields we'll go over in a second. It's also the art of seeing big. It's the art of asking questions. And it's the art of understanding. And there are 2 pillars. Every behavior is rational in its cultural context, and people are experts in their own experience. So, anthropology. Like I said, there are 4 subfields of anthropology. So let's first start with linguistics. So what is linguistic anthropology? This is one of the ones that we'll go over pretty intensely in this class. So linguistics. At its core, it's the study of language. How we produce language, how we share language, and how social situations impact language. How our own social constructs impact language, how language impacts our social constructs, and vice versa. It's sort of a loop. Sorry, I didn't mean to say vice versa. So you could study symbols and their meanings. You could study tone. You could study even emojis. You could talk about the origins of words. You could talk about dialect. The actual words themselves. You could study Creole languages, digital ethnography, and pitch. And there's so much more in that, but that's the basics of what you would study in linguistics. And we will talk more about linguistics later in the course, and you have several exercises on it. So that's linguistic anthropology. So let's talk about archaeology. Archaeology. So that's often when we think of Indiana Jones and other types and tropes of is archaeology. So archaeology is the prehistory, but it's also the current history. So when you're conducting your own archaeology and taking pictures of objects that describe yourself for the discussion, that is also archaeology. You're conducting archaeology. So it's the analysis of human, it's the approach of studying humans through physical artifacts. This can be skeletal remains. It can be things like pottery and ceramics. It can be, like I said, skeletal remains, digging actually excavation sites. It can be art, studying sculptures that are left behind, studying buildings. Archaeology is the focus on the physical remains and understanding humans in our prehistory and current history through physical remains. So that is archaeology. That's the second subfield of anthropology. So the third subfield I want to talk about, one of my favorites, is biological anthropology. Biological anthropology is the study of the biology of humans, but from the perspective of our evolutionary traits and behaviors and aspects. So you would study extinct hominin ancestors. You would study non-human primates. So things like this guy, the chimpanzee. So you would look at how chimpanzees interact with each other. So primatologists are a good example of biological anthropology. You would study skull shapes over time in ancient hominin ancestors. You would study bones and the impact trauma has on bones, things like that. That is biological anthropology. So that's one of the subfields. And we do have an activity on biological anthropology. Usually I take students to the zoo, but since we can't do that because of quarantine, I have a link of webcams of mammals for you to observe from a biological anthropology standpoint. So cultural anthropology, this is the basics of this class. And cultural anthropology is the study of someone's cultures, beliefs, and social organization. This can include a variety of things. It can include things like national governments and nationalism and politics. It can include gender roles. It can include sexuality, taboos, marriage, things like that. And we will have activities on that as well. It can include things like architecture, how things are set up in a city, how do cities function, things like that. You could study money. You could study economics. And you could study ideas and cultural values. You can also study food, which I thought I had a... Yep, there it is, food. We'll also talk about food in this class, too. So a lot of things fall under cultural anthropology, and that is going to be a large focus of this class, is cultural anthropology. Now, one of your assignments for this week is a discussion post. So the first discussion post is your pre-quarter, which is your 3 artifacts. But the second discussion post is how can you use an anthropological framework for your art. So now would be a good time to sit and do that discussion post along with the pre-quarter. And I will post your lecture 2 soon. Thank you. Have a good day.